Okay, I have 10 o'clock. Just so everybody's aware, we do have several people online because this meeting is streamed. Live streamed, is that what we're calling it? All right. I do know several people that do tune in, so it's a great service, I think, that we do. So hopefully it will continue. We will call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have time for a public forum. Anybody wishes to say anything?
I would like to
Yep,
do like I'm supposed to do and walk up here to the microphone
yep.
so everybody can see my back. Anyway, the elections, what a busy time for everybody. Busy at the county, busy at the townships, busy at the cities. And I have to say, I really appreciate the job that everybody does. Not that it's makes any difference what they think of it, but I understand it. There is a case here, I don't know if any of you have been informed of it. Votes that weren't counted. So, and I have personal knowledge of it. So I'm not just throwing this out there. I do think that the write-in ballots need to be counted again for every precinct. Because if, and I'm not saying that the precincts did it incorrectly. I understand it was done at the county level. So I don't know who your ballot board is, who you choose, what caliber, I have no clue. The only thing I know is that it doesn't matter what the race is. The votes are important. And I think something should be done. I really do. And I wouldn't have known myself. I don't know how many times this can or has happened. I can only assume that this is the only time. Because I have, like I said, I have personal knowledge or I never would have looked. So I went to the Secretary of State's website and I saw that the votes weren't there. That's a bad place to get to. And though votes are going to be certified, the election is going to be certified. Some townships have already certified theirs, cities. So it's probably something that needs to be taken a look at. And I have one other request. I have asked that I be informed of any board meetings where there are 3 members of the county board there. I wasn't notified of the one where you combined with the zoning. The door was locked outside. There was a person who couldn't get in. So that needs to be adjusted too, and I need to be informed. It wasn't on the website, didn't come until after meetings.
What meeting was that?
That was the one with the zoning committee.
I'm not aware of that.
We had a joint meeting with the zoning
joint
board up
meeting with
here.
the Zoning board?
And I
I
did.
don't know, it was advertised. I don't know. I don't know.
Be informed of any of those. Like I said, I kind of wavered myself and just gone to the website to look for them, see what's coming up, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna send you a personal invitation. I
She's,
mean, we can't send everybody in the county a personal invitation.
Mr. Chair,
Application.
she is on the list and she should get notices of meetings. And so if that didn't happen in this case, I will follow up on that.
David and I have agreed, he's let me know that it's going to be on the website. It wasn't there. I just accidentally ran into it. So I appreciate that notification. Thanks, David.
And if the door automatically locks at 4:30 and I forgot that. So I apologize for that. Those are just some human errors.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, we do have some people joining through a cell phone, and they have to push *6 if they want to unmute during public forum. In case anyone's waiting for this public forum or the next one.
All right,
It looks like we had someone try that. I'm not sure though. No one's unmuting.
okay, all right. We'll look for adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chair?
Yep,
We have one revision. If we could move consent agenda item 6C, new hire, to regular agenda item 2.1. That's just the timing sequence. The vacancy was considered for backfilling by the Personnel Committee. So we want to be sure that the authorization to hire comes after the Personnel Committee has an opportunity to report. And then in addition to the agenda, if we could add the county commissioner claim forms to item 3.1.
any other additions? Corrections? If not.
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Yeah, we got a motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren. To adopt the agenda as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approve the minutes. Minutes of November 1st, 2022 County Board Meeting and summary for publications. Minutes of the Housing Redevelopment Authority, Economic Development Authority, HRA, EDA, and County Board Joint Meeting, October 26th, 2022.
I will move the 4 of them.
And including the zoning board?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, second by Moore. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then the minutes of the reports and correspondence, the zoning board minutes from September 22nd, 2022.
Oops, by Ludwig.
I'll second it.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Move on to the consent items. You've had those in front of you for a while. For a motion for approval.
I will move those. I'd like to add though, real quick, that I just want to do a public thank you to Kelly. When you reach out to her with questions on like money spent and that type of stuff, she's so quick at answering and I just appreciate it. So
Thank you.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Brings us to our regular agenda, which is a public hearing for the county fee update. And Kelly, I believe, is going to walk us through that first.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So I'm Kelly Schroeder, County Auditor Treasurer. And every year at this time, usually we do a review of our county fee schedule. I reach out to all the departments just to ask them, are there new fees that you need to establish? Are there fees you need to change? And then we go through this process as one big group. So just a note of why we do it this way. So Minnesota statute gives you the authority to set fees. And so the county can set fees for all of these things, including copies, certifying, filing, and services. It's a second bullet there. I always like to hang my hat kind of on that bottom line though. The fees must be reasonable in relation to the fee and the cost of providing the service. And so I wanted to touch base on that because some of these fees you're going to be seeing, they are things that we are providing for a specific citizen. And so if we are not charging them the amount to cover the cost of us doing that, that means the other taxpayers are subsidizing that cost. And so really that's kind of the balance of, do we want to subsidize those costs for us to provide that service for that individual citizen? And sometimes the answer is yes, we absolutely do. But sometimes the answer is no, we don't. And so we'll touch on some of those cases. So just jumping into the different fees. So I have a slide pretty much on every single fee we want to discuss about changing. This first one is the certificate of tax forfeiture. This is a little bit funny because this was Terry's gig. And we've always done these for free. So when we sell forfeited property on our auction, and it has been forfeited for less than 10 years, the only way for the person to get a marketable title on that property is to either go back and find that original person that it forfeited from and get a quick claim deed from them. So that's impossible, really. I mean, they're never going to sign it. The next one is to do a quiet title action through the courts, and you're talking thousands of dollars. I mean, it will go through, but it's thousands of dollars. Or the second option would be to call our office and request an affidavit from our office showing the forfeiture was done correctly, that we sent them a certified letter, that we posted the property, that we put it in the newspaper. And so we put those affidavits together. So we are getting, because we're doing such a good job of turning those tax forfeited properties around and getting them resold, we are getting a massive amount of these requests. I mean, in a given week, sometimes it's a couple of them. And I mean, in the end, you're saving people thousands of dollars from not having to go through the court action. Sometimes it takes us a long time to go find the copy from 9 years ago of the newspaper that we have to provide them, the copy of the sheriff's office service. You know, we had a great filing system, but sometimes things get filed in the wrong place, or sometimes it looks like, oh, this may be forfeited in this year, but actually we should have gone to this folder. And so it just takes time. And so at this point, I'm requesting that we start to charge them a $50 fee for this. It can take us up to an hour to put these together. And that's kind of, when you calculate it out, kind of the standard cost of an employee's hour is $50. So I don't know if you want to ask questions as we go through these individually.
I think we can ask questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so you do 100 a year?
It's not 100 a year, I wouldn't say. There's times of the year where it's busier with them than not. So like right after the auction here, it's been crazy busy with them. Because people are going to get mortgages on those properties to pay off their contracts, or they bought them and now they're turning around and selling them. So it gets pretty busy with them.
And then the average town one is an hour?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So the statute lays out options for the land purchaser,
The title standard.
the title standard. Okay. So is there anything that compels the auditor to do an affidavit? I mean, you could just say no.
Right, I could just say no.
If the person wanted to do it, one of the other two methods, they wouldn't have to pay a fee if there were a fee.
Right, but good luck tracking down that person that lost their property, or, I mean, the court action is very expensive. All right, we'll move on from that one.
Yep.
Still, I mean, there's still an option of not raising a fee or just doing it as a service to the person though, too, right? That's.
Correct. However, then you've got one employee doing a service for one citizen that's benefiting one citizen. And so we may decide that that's what we want to do, and that's fine. You know, that's what we can discuss on any of these fees. Are these fees we want to do, or are these fees where we are happy for the other citizens to subsidize that benefit for that single citizen? Next one is data research. So we, in the auditor's office, get these requests from these data companies. And it's not that the property owner is calling and saying, how much have I paid in taxes for the last 5 years? It's these data companies calling and saying, we've got 25 properties and they're all owned by random people, and we want to know how much the taxes were on in the last 5 years. And it takes a significant amount of requests come in to do that. And so right now, we have no fee schedule, for this request, and so we just do them at no charge. However, these companies, I'm sure, are turning around and making money on this data that they got from us. And so I would like to just be able to charge them for our time of assembling this data for them. So again, this is not the property owner asking, this is companies asking for a variety of huge data.
So adding to that, a lot of times it's going back on microfilm. So finding the microfilm, and our readers are old, and then going back and researching it on microfilm. And so, and she's right, it's usually for companies that make a profit.
Easier for me to get behind.
So if a property owner came in and said, you know, I've owned that property up in Duxbury for 55 years, how much have I paid in taxes in the last 25 years? You'd still do that for,
Right, because it's the property owner.
yeah,
But it's when these companies call with 25 random properties. It's not like it's the same property owner. It's just they're doing some sort of data research, or it might be the escrow company or something. And it's just a huge time suck because we are having to go back to the microfilm. And in the end, you are maybe benefiting a property owner in Pine County, but I don't know that you are.
To be honest, a lot of these are, from personal experience, are the companies that want to come and buy your land. And so they come and they get all this information so that they can see what you paid for it, what your taxes have been, what your values are. And so they want all this information so that they can give you a sucky offer, is basically what it's coming down to on a lot of these. Sorry, just my 2 cents.
All right, we'll move on with that. So the gambling license fees, so you guys see those gambling licenses come before you. Those are for the premises permit, so usually it's the pull tabs or the bingo at the local establishments that are outside of the cities. Or sometimes it's for those one-day events like the raffles or whatnot. And previously, those applications come into me. I put them on the board agenda. You guys review them on the consent agenda, and then once they're approved, I have to complete the application and then send it back to the property owner. And so up until 2020, we did those things at no fee, even though, and so then in 2020, I had researched and it seemed most counties were charging for it. And we have the authority to charge for it. And so I wanted to start somewhere in 2020. We started with $10, which now that we've been doing $10 for 2 years, my conclusion is the $10 is more work than it's even worth. To get the money from them receipted in and then do the whole other process. And so I would just request that it goes to $20.
How many of those, I mean, are there a year, just a guess, I mean, 10 of them?
Because we only do the ones outside of city limits. So next fee is the liquor license additional fee. So currently, we have $100 fee that we charge those liquor license holders if they reapply within 30 days of their expiration. So we send their applications out usually the end of May, early June. Their licenses expire August 30th. And it is amazing how many emergencies on their part are supposed to be an emergency on my part. And then they come to realize, it's Labor Day weekend and my license isn't gonna get approved and I just turned it in 2 days ago. How can you do this to me? And so this is one of those fees that really, it's just a penalty. And so maybe if it was a little bit steeper of a penalty, maybe people will pay attention a little bit more. That's these people with liquor licenses, that's the heart and soul of their business. And some of them don't seem to care, and then it becomes our problem. So that one's not covering our costs in all honesty. But yet it's a penalty for not doing what you're supposed to do and then it becoming my problem.
Kelly, are you aware of the state of Minnesota buyer's card that goes along with?
Correct.
Yeah, there's been some shortcomings with that at the state level, and especially the last 2 years with everybody having COVID or the whole COVID thing.
Yeah, this isn't new at all.
No, but the last couple of years, it has been difficult. Then you have to coordinate your insurance with it and everything else. And it's just been a unique couple past years, even with that, especially when you got to deal with the state. And that's a $20 buyer card, and they don't even let you pay ahead. You can't just say, I'll give you, here's $100, cover me for the next 5 years. It's got to be.
Yes, and I understand that there's a whole process to it, and that's also why we let people turn in incomplete applications. Just get them in so we can start working on them. And then get us your stuff as you can. But some just,
And it's the same ones every time.
it is the same ones every time. 3-2 and temporary liquor licenses. So currently, so the process to issuing these is very similar to regular liquor licenses. So we need their application, we need 3-2, we don't need their liquor liability insurance. So temporary licenses we do. It goes to the sheriff, it goes to the attorney, it goes to you guys, it goes through the state, for the temporaries. So it's a huge process. And currently, like our on sale licenses, for example, our year round ones are $1,500. But yet for the temporaries, which is pretty much the same amount of work, we charge them $50, which just seems crazy. It does not come anywhere to covering the cost to doing it. So my request would be to change that from 50 to 100.
It was like when they have like fundraisers and stuff, that's the kind of ones also like
The majority of ours are weddings.
a wedding, majority of them.
And then we do have 2 3-2 holders. Who choose to sell 3-2 only.
Liquor license, that's still outside of the cities, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's not in the city limits, it's just when they're out in townships.
The 2 holders, is that what you would call the setup also fits underneath the same, the setup license?
No, this is completely separate. We're getting to the end of my auditor treasurer fees. So the last one is the tobacco license fee. So currently it's an $85 fee. The application, similar to other types of applications, requires several different steps and things that our office has to complete. You guys review it and then we issue the license. Currently that fee is $85. It has been $85 since before the early 2000s, when we researched back. You know, and it doesn't cover our cost, our time to doing those licenses. So I'm just requesting that to go from 85 to 100. All right, moving on to somewhere besides my licenses. And Becky's here too. There's questions on this one, but child care facility licenses. So obviously, as we've talked about over the last couple of years, or maybe even longer than that, there's a recruitment and retention issue with childcare facilities. And we have a much larger need than the amount of providers we have. And so Becky has a proposal to just simply eliminate that initial fee for childcare applications. This is one of those fees that it maybe makes sense for the county to essentially subsidize those people trying to go through that process, because that's a huge need of the community as a whole. And so that would be taking that initial fee from $50 to just nothing. And then on the renewals currently, there's a $100 fee, and they are requesting that that's waived through April 30th of 2024. And overall, it's not a huge impact to the budget. There was $2,500 of license revenue in the 2022 budget. So it's not a huge impact, but yet maybe it can help us get some of those services that we desperately need. Questions on that?
Were they were all shut down during COVID, right? Oh, or were they essential? They were considered essential?
Structures for human services, they were not shut down in COVID. Essential.
We had some that did close them
Yes.
during COVID because they couldn't get kids because the parents were out at home, but yeah.
And then, of course, they were eligible for any ARPA, COVID, any monies, they were available to receive those. Do you know if they have or not, the ones you're talking about? Did they receive the
I'm-
10,000 and the 30,000 and the 40,000 they've received?
I know that I know some of that, I don't know how many or how much they received.
Because that came out of what, state and federal then, right? That money is, yes, and this would directly go on to the taxpayers. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on now. So that was Human Services. Moving on to the Sheriff's Office, there's a couple of requests from them. So the first request is for the E911 address requests. So currently, when folks need an address for their property, they fill out an application. It goes to the sheriff's office. Denise and the staff there work with our GIS to establish the address, get it put into our Zerker system. And then they work with the highway department on getting the sign installed. Denise is estimating the cost to be about $100 per sign. Currently, we do not, or per address, because it's not just the sign, there is a process to assigning the address as well. So currently there is no fee for those requests. In Denise's research, it sounds like most counties do charge for that. You can see kind of the number of applications we've gotten throughout the last couple of years of a dollar amount we're looking at. It was noted that the fee would be split between the sheriff's office and the highway department, since it's both of them working on it.
That $20 doesn't even cover the sign, does it?
Correct.
Here's my take on it, though. This is something that every rural resident in Pine County, it's not one person or 10 people, it's everybody has an ad or a blue sign. And so I think that one is, in my opinion, fair, that everybody in the county is we're already paying for it. So I think that there is a 911 grant that comes and we get that. I think that's well covered already.
I don't know if you have anything to add, Jeff.
I guess I don't. It is what it is. I mean, obviously somebody's paying for it without the fee. That's what the size.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So if we add a new one, doesn't that generate revenue into the E911? Doesn't that add from the phone bill or whatever, that whole thing, isn't that still in place, that funding? From cell phones or whatever?
Like our E911 grant, does it become more because we have a new address?
Yeah,
I guess I'm not sure how that formula works. It seems like that has been very much the same year after year.
Been pretty flat that I remember.
I don't know that the number of addresses is in the formula.
I think originally it was. You know, we got a big grant to put those signs up in the beginning. I don't know, a long time ago. And then we get a E911 grant every year to cover things that go on with that. It doesn't cover the cost of doing business for dispatch and GIS and all that stuff. But I know the highway department's the guys that actually go pound the signs and sign up. I don't know. We can go on.
Okay. Getting to the end of the list here, in the sheriff's office as well. And this was kind of discussed at the budget presentation for the sheriff's office, is reducing the fees for the gun permits for the military and the veterans. So currently, someone to get a new gun permit, it's $100. The proposal is to reduce that to $10. And then currently the renewals, depending on how soon they apply, if it's how far out from their expiration they apply, it's somewhere between $75 and $85. And so the request is $10 on that as well. So again, this is one of those things that, yes, the fee would not be covering the cost, but the sheriff's office would like to support the military veteran population. And really, it's not a budget buster to do that.
I agree with that.
All right, solid waste. So for the tires at our transfer stations, our cost of those for disposing of those is increasing significantly. And then also just how our fees are established are changing. So previously, like the passenger car tires, they were considered 17 inches or less. And light truck were 18 to 23 or something. And so our vendor's doing away with those inches description and they're just going with the description. And so you can see the new descriptions, you can see the current prices. Our proposed prices are going up pretty significantly, except for in that light truck / SUV tire. But in the end, I mean, that's going up pretty proportionately with what our costs are going up. And so if we don't increase, then we're simply subsidizing those costs more. And maybe we're okay to do that. But then our solid waste budget maybe looks different.
I know those tires prices, we can't find somebody to come and dispose of the tires once you collect them as part of the problem. There's like 2 companies that'll do business in this part of the state. And their costs have gone extremely
Everyone's.
high.
So I know we've had discussions about wanting to keep those prices as low as we can to encourage people to use it. But we don't have people scoff at our current prices at all. People are so happy with our current prices is what we hear. So we're hopeful that this won't.
I think we'll still be much lower than most places.
Yeah, how is this price, I guess, comparable to where you can bring tires to other places, you did like compare, when was the last time you had tires changed? What do they charge you at the gas station now?
$3, I think, for,
So it's comparable to them?
Right.
what's the last one I did? That's 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Can't remember the last time.
Probably more.
depends on how the gas station wants to charge.
Yeah.
I mean, they're selling you $1,000 set of tires on a pickup.
Yeah.
Hey,
So they're gonna charge you $950 and then charge you $100 to dispose of the tires, or they're gonna charge you $990 and only charge you $10 to dispose of the tires, you know?
That's exactly right, because
You know, they got wiggle room to play with those prices where
they include,
we collect the tire, we have to pay somebody to come and get it. And a lot of people there's a lot of tires still laying around the countryside, that's for sure.
where are they going now when they collect them at the transfer stations? Who comes?
State Tire, and then what's the name of the other outfit?
My mind's gone blank headed.
Yeah, there's 2 outfits anyway, and they're always in questionable status. Because they have a hard time getting rid of them, that's the problem.
Sure.
It's not a readily recyclable commodity. And tractor tires are, and if you can't make a sandbox out of them, it costs you more to get rid of a tractor tire now than it used to cost you to buy a tractor tire.
And that's not showing on here, but our fee for that is $50.
Yeah,
But we're not proposing to change that.
yeah.
50 for a tractor trailer?
Right.
5.
You gotta find somebody that wants a sandbox.
I can't even live.
I remember playing on it. They can make some really cool tire art.
Waste facility license. So actually, we discussed this at the October 18th county board meeting when we looked at the solid waste ordinance. So in the solid waste ordinance, there's always been this requirement to license our solid waste facilities. And it's something that we really need to do since it's in our ordinance. And so our proposal at that time was just to establish the $200 fee, which is exactly the same as what our waste haulers pay. We recently spent quite a bit of time on that one. And I think this is our last one, appeal of zoning decision. So our ordinance lists the option for citizens, if they disagree with a decision our zoning staff makes. So this isn't our zoning board, a decision our zoning board makes. This is a decision our zoning staff makes. And so people can have the option to appeal to the zoning board on that decision. Currently, we have not received any appeals since I have been doing zoning since 2013. However, I would like to be prepared just in case that would come up. And so, but yet we haven't had a fee, we haven't had application and any applications of appeals received. But again, being prepared is better than it coming and going, we don't know what to do. So my request would be to add a fee of $600, which is exactly the same fee as the other zoning board applications. So as your variances, as your conditional use permits.
So if I want to appeal to a decision, I still have to fill out the application and that would be 600 plus I have to pay, or I would just pay the.
So you've applied for your permit
Okay,
and then we've denied it. And so a lot of times we are refunding those initial application fees because we've denied it, like you can't do it. Sometimes we don't even get out there. We look at it and go, this is not gonna work. And so a lot of times we're refunding those fees. And so then if you'd want to appeal our decision on that, our staff decision on that, you would be then filling out a separate application for that appeal, explaining why you think we made the wrong decision.
so can we make it so that they always get that $600 back if we're
Yeah.
charging them an extra six? So there's not a maybe in there?
They wouldn't,
The 600 is the appeal fee, not the initial application fee.
But so if I filled one out and it was denied, and if I was the one that did not get my $600, you know what I mean? So if I'm
The
denied,
initial application isn't $600.
oh, okay,
The initial application is somewhere between 500 or 50 and 200.
okay.
And yes, if you procedurally would like us to always refund them, we can do that.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried that fee like that might say, I don't want to appeal because it cost me this much money. And you know what I mean? So they just walk away without any recourse. And so, and I'm not saying it's.
Yeah, Caleb and I had lots of discussions on this about what is right. And so the only thing we could come up with is make it the same as the other zoning board applications. But yet we struggled with that because the other zoning board applications include a public hearing where this wouldn't include a public hearing. So there is that publication cost. That's about $50 that we wouldn't be incurring for these appeals.
So, but if this is an application, would you don't do a public hearing on an application, right?
Right, so on these appeals, you wouldn't be doing a public hearing,
This is just a flat out, we're not giving you a permit.
right? And now you disagree with that
and you want to come and appeal to the
zoning.
zoning board. Would half of that amount be reasonable?
I'm happy with whatever amount you guys feel good with.
I think if-
Caleb and I went back and forth, and so that's what we came up with, but we're not opposed to something.
I think it should be the same as their application fee, because then you can refund it if they don't get the application, then if they want to appeal it, they put it back, or or something like that. So it isn't. I'm trying to make it fair for both.
Well, the current one's 0. And it says no appeals have been received. So there hasn't been any,
Correct,
but should be prepared.
right. Because I don't like people to come up with things and then us go, oh, we don't know how to do that.
Yeah,
I like Matt's idea, the amount of the application fee.
And so let's say they applied to build a house, and so that application fee was $200 and we've denied it. So if they want to appeal it, you're saying we just wouldn't refund them that $200? But if they don't want to appeal it, we would refund them?
Pretty much.
Is that what you're saying, Matt?
I'm saying that if you deny the permit you should say, here's your money back, because we're not gonna let you do that. Goes back in their hands.
But then
And if they go to appeal, you say, well, you have the right to appeal. You shouldn't make it.
but then they gotta cough up the money, $200 back.
Right. And then if they get an application, then it's gonna cost them another application, or you're just gonna keep the original application. That's what you have to figure out.
I got
Yeah,
what do you do now?
Zero.
Like I'm just saying if you're denied,
Right, so now it kind of depends on the situation of how much time and effort have we put into this? Because sometimes we've spent 25 hours on this application and it's like, we've already spent more than your permit fee working on this. It doesn't make sense for us to give you that money back because we've already spent that.
I get that, but we're promoting people to live here, okay? So we have to kind of stay on a positive side of it. You know, you want people to come here and build a house or whatever, so, and I get you have to have a fee. But
here's my next question. From my understanding, I understand that the staff has to go through the whole thing. But like if you call up Caleb and just say, hey, I'm looking at building a house here. Just a real initial, hey, do you think there's a chance that this, I want to build it in that swamp? He's gonna say, yeah, don't waste your time, correct? I mean.
But then we get some of those people that turn in an application.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, and what would be so if you get denied an application and it costs you nothing to appeal, now. I don't see the point of that. There's got to be something, like if Jeff pulls me over for speeding and I get a ticket and I appeal it, do I?
Be more when you're found.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
see, what I don't know is if you always give the money back if you deny. You said sometimes.
Right, it all depends on the situation.
Mr. Chair?
yeah.
So I think to that point, the permit fee that you pay when you apply is to pay for the review of the permit. It's not to pay for the issuance, right? It's not buying the right to do what you're asking for. It's paying the county to do the review. And so what it sounds like is if the review at a superficial level determines that this is just not appropriate, it doesn't meet the ordinance, it doesn't qualify. But staff does not have to invest a lot of time to do it because it's clear. They just say, hey, it's not going to work. Here's your money back. We're not going to charge you. If they invest the time because it's a complicated project or it's not clear and there's a detailed review, then the fee is not refunded.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
It does. It's kind of a sliding scale thing or working.
How many are
So most of it happened in the show,
Haven't.
ones like that.
There's been zero.
We deny permits.
Yeah.
We do deny permits. It's not very often that we deny permits.
But they have denied permits, but there's been no appeals at this point.
I just worry about the amount being a deterrent for them to appeal. So lower that maybe might help me, but.
So if,
Well, my proposal would be then to make it, if it's a house application, $200, that they're probably not getting the $200 back because we've invested a lot of time. If they want to appeal it to the zoning board, that they pay another $200 because then it's going to involve a lot more time.
So your proposal is that the fee is whatever the permit will cost.
Yes. Yes.
On top of the initial permit fee.
Right.
What is your range in permits? Because I don't know if that's such a good idea. If I pay $100 for my permit and you pay $300 for your permit, you're going to be mad that I only paid $100.
But
You know
it's
what I
for a
mean?
different item.
Right, I understand, but for my appeal, then I would pay $100 and you would pay $300, and that's where the conflict is going to come out.
But
So what is your range?
So our building permits are $50 to $200 and then septic for a full septic system is $300.
so if there's an interest in maybe finding a simple and fair solution, what if you set a fee, say, whether it's 100 or 200 for the appeal, and that fee, if the zoning board approves the application as presented, you'd refund the fee. And if the zoning board denied it, then you would keep the fee.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah. Because at least we're promoting the growth still.
Mhm.
We have to hash through some issues. Okay, that helps me. Thank you. I don't know if that's, so where we at?
So then what would a good fee be? Because I personally think 600 is pretty high.
200.
Yeah, I don't like the $600.
Yeah.
200.
100.
Too. I can go,
And we can see,
And maybe we're
What
not
happened?
gonna have any more for 10 more years.
right.
Yeah, 600 is triple of the next highest one that you have on this whole thing. And
Yeah, they're very different things.
oh, is it right?
It just seems like it's too much because it'll deter someone from
Yeah.
appealing and they might have a,
Zero
You don't wanna do that.
600 in 2 seconds is pretty fast. Here, I mean.
I just,
From zero.
200,
200.
get 600.
Okay, it's around.
Done.
So is there wiggle room then on the rest of them, Mr. Chair?
Well, we have,
Or we don't have time?
no, we got plenty of time.
That is the end of,
That's the end of the staff. Now it's time for the county board to ask questions.
yeah,
we have additional questions.
I'll go first. The only one I have is the tax force.
Okay,
I want to go back to that because I gotta find it. Yes. So. We generate revenue for tax forfeit typically, right?
correct, from the sale of those properties. And so if it's just when those properties sell within 10 years of the original forfeiture. That we end up in this.
Can I add? So if I bought a piece of tax forfeited land and I bought it because I want to build a home on it or I want to hunt on it or whatever, and I don't resell it right away, so I have it for over 10 years, then I don't have to do anything. But if I buy it with the intent that I'm going to fix up this house or whatever on the property, and then I'm going to turn around and sell it right away and make money on it, that's when they have to come and get that affidavit.
Okay, so I didn't understand that. Okay.
Yeah, so it's only if they go to sell it or do something with it within that 10 years after it's been forfeited.
Because you're just doubling back and doing the work again.
Right.
I got it. Now I got it. Sorry, I was confused. That's where I was confused.
Yeah.
That's your wheelhouse.
That's Terry's
Yeah,
wheelhouse.
it is my wheelhouse. And in all honesty, $50 is pretty minimal for what you end up doing. And
Yes.
usually the attorneys that.
I get that.
Yeah,
I just know we generate.
right. I'm with you. Yep, you get all that
Yeah,
money with your
yeah.
forfeited. And the majority of people that buy the forfeited land buy it because they want it. They're not buying it to resell it, but we have the people that buy it with the and then they turn around and they resell it
Flip it.
for almost triple the amount of money.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where it's like, okay, this, okay, and make profit and net profits. It's more for everybody else too.
Okay. Thank you for that. And thank you for the time.
Anybody else got comments?
Is this action item?
But we gotta do the public hearing too.
We got, this is the time for the board to ask questions and the public can weigh in, and then the board will have one last time to
Yeah.
comment. We move on to the public. Okay, anybody from the public wish to comment?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead, Gussie.
Gussie Crew.
Mixing some.
I'm looking at these fees and I see some of them in some way make sense, but others, I'm looking at the ones that are taxed, our taxpayers are gonna have to pay. They're already paying for these departments. They pay taxes for these departments to function. I think that a lot of these things you're talking about are a function of that department. Gambling, the tobacco, the E911. Like I said, you're taking money from the residents who've already paid for those departments. You don't want to discourage the businesses. For the outside data miners, or whatever you want to call them, They don't pay taxes here. I think that's a good fee. I mean, they're putting our county to work and these people in our departments are working for us, not for that outside data mining. Also, maybe revisit some of those, I think county, see the county growth discouraged in the county, so maybe revisit some of those fees and see if they are more applicable, you know, as the county grows. Right now, it's not. I know he said there is a 911 grant. That's a good point too. That would probably help with that. And the gun permits for the military, excellent. Increase that, we should be burdening them. The tire fees, hate to say what probably gonna happen. Nobody wants to pay to get rid of their trash, and you all know that because how many times have we done a waste meeting about waste, right? As soon as you increase that cost for tires, you're gonna find them in the ditches. I know we're all tired of that.
And just so you understand, Gussie,
Yes,
we subsidize what it costs. If you were gonna take tires and leave them at a place and First State Tire was gonna come, their pickup charge would be about twice of what we're
I
charging.
have no doubt of that, Steve.
So
Yeah.
we have determined we're gonna subsidize that, try to keep them out of the ditch.
I have no doubt. My
Yes.
concern is though, as soon as you raise it a little bit, the person says, oh, I'll pay a buck.
Yep, I worry about the same thing.
Yeah, and you see them out there.
People like you and me, we're always going to take it to the transfer station because that's what we believe is right. And that's what we're going to do. The people that are going to throw them in the ditch are always going to throw them in the ditch. You know, it's the same people all the time that don't have that.
The old 1995 Chevy or whatever. It's flat tire. Doesn't have a place to keep that. They live in an apartment. It's gonna go in the ditch.
Mhm.
So, I think thinking about where that comes from too, so. $600 appeal for zoning, and I know you went through this too, and I think it discourages, like Matt said, it discourages appeals. And I don't think that we should put that out there as a discouragement. People should be able to appeal what they think is not correct. And I think the publication fee, absolutely. I mean, that's a process. Get in there, you're gonna have to have an appeal, you're gonna have to put a notice in, and I think that most people would be willing to do that because they understand it's beyond the process. It's beyond. And I think that was all I had.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody online?
I do want to add one piece of clarification to the permit fees. My ask is that that's county residents.
Yeah.
Because the way the statute is, anyone from outstate can apply to any county, and I don't want all of Wisconsin coming through Pine County. And taking advantage of that.
Thank you for.
I just want to make sure that's
for clarifying that.
Thanks, Beth.
Yeah, thank you.
You get really busy.
I do have a question for your staff, between Kelly and Jeff's staff. I love the idea. One of the things I hear continually from Matt are first responders and firefighters. They're the people that are out there. You're calling those people out all the time. I don't know how many of them there are in the county. If there's 100 or if there's 50 or 500, I don't know. But maybe in future years, we could think about offering the same thing for those people.
For sheriff's staff, retired deputies or.
Again, in full disclosure, I have been waiving law enforcement that live in our county. So that's been going on as part of my business practice. So this would just make it an official
For veterans.
for the military.
Yeah, Jeff and I have had this discussion. You come out of the military, you fired 50 cal M60s, laws, and all kinds of stuff. And now Now you gotta go through this procedure to carry a little 22 pistol, you know?
And it doesn't change the requirements.
It does not change the requirements,
Be required to be
but
trained.
the fee always kind of hurts people, I know. Anyway, thanks. I hear nobody else from the public, so we'll close the public hearing and we'll come back to the county board if there's any other.
I'd like to, so then you're promoting a $10 fee for the veterans and the current one was $100?
Correct.
I guess I would, you'd also said that a $10 fee, you double to 20 because it's like costs money to process a 10. So I would say, I would like to see the military one be 0.
So I can clarify that as well.
Yeah, okay.
That's a fee that the county pays to the state.
Okay.
On every permit that we process, we pay the state to run the data. So that, the thought again behind that was, not eliminating, but not having the county residents pay that $10 fee that we have to pay. So we're absorbing the internal costs, but the fact that we're paying another entity, we thought was only fair that would apply.
I think that makes sense.
Then the other one would be,
Thanks, Jeff.
E911 also. I mean, to have a 0 initial fee and propose 20. I guess I would be more for 0 on that one also.
I'd agree, JJ.
Yep, I do too. I think we should provide that one.
Yeah,
I can say that I worked on the E911 when we first got it and it's a horrendous job.
It is.
However, to get these new homes to come in, and we really want people to move here, we want people to live here. I agree that I think that should be just something, a service that we do. I know that it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. And I know that the resources to put the signs up is another avenue, and this doesn't even cover that cost. But we are working so hard for county growth.
Here's what I think we'll do. We'll just quickly, there's only what, 7, 8 pages here.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I like it.
Quickly go through. A yay or nay or a change. So let's go to first with the tax forfeiture fee. Proposed $50.
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes, for me.
Oh, yes. Okay, we got a yes.
So, Mr. just to clarify, do you want to vote on each one independently? And then when you get through the list, you're done and those are the fees? Or you're wanting to go through?
I'm just
Make
going,
votes.
here's what I thought we'd go through. We're getting a consensus here and then we'll vote on the whole package. Is that legal?
So there can still be discussion.
I would say it's legal, but there may be differing opinions.
Well, there's
that-
gonna be different.
So it might be easier if you just resolved each one at each one and took a vote.
So then
Is that,
Yeah, that makes more sense.
we need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to change the forfeiture cost from $0 to $50.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Opposed?
and I'm sorry, one more note, these are all effective January 1st,
Yes,
2023.
yes. Data research, 0 feet now to go to 50.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
More, second by Lovegren. Discussion? All in favor?
Right.
Opposed? Gambling license, 10 to 20.
Make that motion.
second.
Motion by Lovegren, second by Moore. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Liquor license. This is the application that comes in late. Those last minute applications.
I will make this motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Temporary, 3-2 license. Go from 50 to 100.
Oh,
Go, you go. I'll second it.
Did you second that, Terry?
I did, yeah.
Motion by Moore, second by Lovegren. Discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Tobacco fee. 85 to 100.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Ludwig. I told Kelly we should make them about $1,000 after I signed about 150 of them the other day. I mean, we're trying to promote no smoking that we're issuing a license, but anyway. Who seconded that?
AJ.
Waldham?
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Human service fee. 50 to 0. Renewal,
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Ludwig, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? E9991. E911 addressing fee.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
under Health and Human Services for the childcare, there was
Yep.
also the renewal fee.
yes, that was also included in that motion.
Okay, sorry, I missed that. Thank you.
Yep. It's waived through April 30th of 2024. 911 fee.
Are we at 0 here?
Yeah, I guess propose a 0.
Yeah.
Okay, you make that a motion, JJ?
Or can it just fail without a motion?
Either way, I'd just soon have a motion that it stays at 0.
That motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Waldham, seconded by Ludwig, that the fee remains at 0. Any discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Gun permits for military veterans of Pine County residents.
I'd make a motion of 0 for that also, if I could.
We have a second on the 0. We're looking for a second or a different motion.
What was Jeff, your explanation again on why?
The $10 broker.
Can't do it?
You can pay a fee out to the VCA for every permit of $10. Oh. So the thought was, we're absorbing internally that cost of processing, but we're not charging the rest of the county $10 for every.
Sure.
I'll make a motion for the $10.
Well, he's got, did it die of a lack of a second? First.
Yes. So now Lovegren made a motion for a $10. Let it go to $10.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Waldham. Any discussion? So the current fee, the initial fee will, instead of be 100, it'll be 10. The renewal fee, instead of being 75 to 85, it'll be 10. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Solid waste tire fee. See the table, 2, 350, 475, 850, and 14.
I'll move that one.
I'll second it.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren. Any discussion?
I got some.
Yep.
Do you know what you pay to get rid of it?
It is about double whatever the cost is that it says there.
And this is not, it's just for residents. It's not for commercial.
Correct,
Not commercial.
Okay.
for residential only,
And I know most commercial, they come on site and pick them up.
right?
And I was trying to get a price at what they pay, but he hasn't responded. I kind of like, I don't know. I like would you maybe, is there a fee to say just we would cover 50% of what it costs? Or is that, I guess that's probably a little,
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think the challenge with that is we may not know pricing until we call for a disposal pickup. And so we would have already collected those tires.
so for some reason I doubt it, but if it drastically goes down,
Right, we would absolutely come back.
yeah. Cause
We
I'm,
can change this fee during the year.
Yes, you would. The only requirement is to have a public hearing.
If the thing nosedived in April, we could at the May meeting, we could say, we're gonna change our fee structure to nothing.
I just am kind of the same. I mean, it's very little amount difference, but I just get fear of people just toss it out the back of the vehicle. Okay, that's, I guess, all I have. I guess maybe I'd have one. If a commercial business did want to dispose of them, with you not,
Put them in contact with the right channels. We only get one container to put them in there, and if we had a commercial person come in, the container could be full
okay,
in a day.
yeah. He did just get back to me. He said $2 to $5 is what he pays. So, but I don't know how many that is you gotta have or whatever. So. Okay,
Well, the 2 to 5 covers
Those are-
everything except for the
those are-
skids and the semi.
Car
Yeah.
tires.
yeah, I would guess that's.
Okay, any more discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Solid waste licensing fee.
Make this.
I'll second.
Motion by Lundgren, seconded by Moore. This is basically reaffirming what we said before. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Zoning fee, which led us to this, probably. I think we were at $200 for a appeal of a decision that has to go to the zoning board.
Make the motion for $200.
I'll second.
Motion by Lundgren, second by Ludwig. Any more discussion on that? Thank you, everybody, for good discussion. Thank you for preparing the staff for preparing all this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We just had a call from Baton Rouge, Florida. I bet you that was important.
Your vehicle warranty, so.
I think last time I talked to him, JJ, I told him I had a 79 Ford pickup and they told me it wasn't eligible.
You and I got the same fleet.
Okay. We'll move on to the Personnel Committee report. The minutes are attached. Matt, you want to lead us through that?
You want me to handle the new hire when I go through that?
Yeah.
Not at the same time, so, okay. I'll start with Health and Human Services. We acknowledge the resignation of eligibility worker Angie Palmer. Effective October 21st, 2022, and approve the backfill position and any subsequent vacancies that occur due to internal promotion lateral transfer. Second was acknowledge the retirement of social worker Mary Buckswiggle effective January 6th, 2023. approve the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. Number 3, we acknowledge the resignation of social worker Jenna Furlong, effective November 18th, 2022, approve the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies that occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. And then, so if you want me to stick to new hire and what's also health.
Yeah.
Yeah, so interviews were held for a vacant position where we get handled in a fire board meeting, and Jayla Schler was offered the job contingent on a background check and county board approval. If approved, Jayla would be begin working for Pine County November 16th at $20.49 per hour. Pine County Sheriff's Department Corrections, we acknowledge the resignation of Corrections Officer Alex White, effective November 18th. And approve the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotional lateral transfer. Having said that, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve that, and then I'll finish with.
Yeah, that's a good place to break there. Got a motion.
I'll
by
second.
Ludwig, seconded by Moore, to acknowledge or approve the proposals that Matt just laid out. Any discussion?
I have a question for Becky. How long has Mary been here? She's retiring.
Almost 34 years.
Oh,
That's so, yeah, that's awesome.
that's awesome. Any other questions?
One quick comment. I'd just like to acknowledge, thank you, Steve, for filling in for me.
Yeah,
It's kind of a last minute deal. I apologize.
all in favor, say aye.
All right,
Opposed? Okay, Matt, now.
yeah, I'll take the rest. So the rest of the discussion was, it came forward as it ended up being when the question was asked, what happens when someone reaches the top of their pay scale and they're due for performance evaluation. And what do you do? Do you just hold them at the top? Or do you change something? So what we did was incorporate that in 2 more items that were on the agenda, and that ended up being the 15-year performance pay issue and compensation study thing. So it blended into a big thing. So it was broke down here like that. So we had a discussion, and this is not to be decided today. We just want to throw it out there and we get our heads kind of cranking on this. So the discussion was expanding the 2% at 15 years pay for performance to non-union employees, like the program we have for correction officers, dispatchers, and deputies. So that would allow employees who have reached 15 years of employment and who are at the top of their pay scale are eligible up to a 2% performance increase on their 15th year anniversary date. This increase shall be awarded following a satisfactory performance review by their supervisor and approval of the department head. And any employee not awarded that performance increase at 15 years can be considered at future anniversary dates. So we're trying to figure out what really comes into play is retaining these employees in this competitive job market, or they're gonna, how do you do it? So we already have this in place with some of our people, but we don't have it in place with the non-union staff, which is, so. Any questions on that?
Is this something that could be looked at for all employees? I know it's gonna cost.
Yes.
I think, Terry, that
It will be.
that's what we have to keep in mind, because you know what happens when
Right.
one class of people get something that's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, so to speak. And so I think we have to
So
weigh that as we consider anything we do.
Okay.
I do think, the forgotten folks sometimes are our non-union people, the 54 people that are kind of in that limbo section. They're,
What typically happens,
they say limbo, but they're not covered by a union contract. They're kind of waiting for what the county board's gonna give them. And so I think those are the people that make a huge difference in how the county performs. So I think we have to think about that as we're thinking about how does it affect the whole county.
yeah. So what happens is with all the union contracts we have, which we have a bunch of them, most of them have a step increase, somewhere based on years of service or something, and they, whatever, it goes from steps 1 through 5 or whatever they're established in contracts. Well, the non-union still have. So they just go on a basically a performance thing.
Okay.
So like our deputies, they're gonna get those steps, whichever decided. So if they hit a date, boom, you're getting a raise because it's built into their contract. Well, other county employees don't have that. Jail deputies, I don't know if highway has a step or not. They might, I think the highway has a step, that contract, but so. And then the last contract established a 15-year in there. So that's what they're talking about there. So. It's about setting a goal to stay here and work here in the county that, I'm not gonna say it's a decision we all have to get to, but yeah, it's gonna have an impact. And then we're gonna be coming in. So then we are also having a discussion about, we went through our compensation study in 2016, which is, it's probably a good idea to do them every 10 years or whatever to see if we're competitive. So we rolled that into this. That was the other topic. So we have to decide if we want to do that as a board. And then if we do that, well, then we have to get started because that takes time. So,
Okay.
so in the meantime, we have some employees in these small, county attorney's office or whatever, they're hitting there and they're sitting there. And then we're gonna hit negotiations with the unions coming up in 2023. So it's just a topic that's out there and we all need to be thinking about what we're gonna do. So I don't know what we do with the employees right now, so I don't know when we want to decide that or how we want to, if you want to have a committee of the whole, I don't know what we're gonna do there. Do it at a county board meeting or what? Dave, do you have any comments? Did I cover it pretty well?
Mr. Chair, thanks, Matt. Just a little nuance on the union step scales, right? Because there's always some one-offs. The social services supervisors are just like non-union, they're 100% pay for performance. They do not have steps in their contract. The highway supervisors are a hybrid. So they have steps, I think it's steps 1 through 5, but it's some number of steps. And then they have a performance max above that. And so as we started to work with the deputies and the correction officers, dispatchers on their pay scale, we ended up with this 2% pay for performance to try to put in more emphasis on the performance piece of it. And years ago, and Terry, you maybe worked here long enough that there was some longevity in the contracts. It was worked out before I started here, but I remember hearing the stories about how that was worked out because the county didn't want to pay longevity. And so this was introduced as an option or an alternative to that it's actually trying to implement the pay for performance piece. And so, Matt, I think you laid it out well, that it really is up to the county commissioners to think about how you want to structure your pay and how you want to position in the market. But I know I did get some feedback from Jeff, who's here, and from Rod about how it's worked in their departments. And I think it's, from their perspective, it's been very positive to have that ability to go a little bit above the top and have a performance aspect to it.
I like the performance aspect because I think, you have to earn it. I think, and that's huge. So yeah,
Yeah, and my first contract, when I was first here, it was I think it was a 5-year step. Might have been through. Not sure, it may have been. Anyway, then it was a 10-year step, a 15-year step, a 20-year step, and a 25-year step.
You guys
Those-
are high.
They kept getting picked out. Yeah, yes.
Ours was 3.
Because the salaries are so low, they just made you stay to get a bump like that, So, but yeah, So that's what, so they were phased out. Tenure was phased out, I think, like first year I was here or something like that. But the 15, 20 and 25 stayed, which they were, then they had, like Dave said, they were all phased out. Anyway, so the idea is, we have recruitment and retention, and that's what we want. Do you want to go? That's what we have to think about. We just say, let the chips fall, or do we try to retain employees? Because it costs money.
Mhm.
But I think we really need to know where we sit in the market too. I think our last time we got the numbers, we were sitting like 75%. If it was low was here and I was here, we were pretty good last contract time, but I don't know where we're sitting now because everybody's throwing so much money in. We're losing people, but what do we do? I don't know. We can't compete with Edina. We can't do that, but.
On the 13th of December, I believe we have a committee of the whole meeting. And maybe between now and then, we can all mull this over in our minds.
And I think we should see what the end dollar impact is going to be if we do love something like this. And I think they're going to try to work that out so they can give us a number. So right now, there's not a lot of people going to hit it. But it happen every year from after that, someone could hit. I don't know where everybody sits in their employment status,
But maybe then we'll have a good lengthy discussion about all the options that might be available.
Yeah.
And,
and people that are, the thing to think about is people that are at the top of scale, they're making a decent living. That's the number I want to see. Where does that, once that top of scale, where do we plug into the scale out there? And if somebody has been here that long, are they going to leave? Is that say, well, they're not going to leave there, but you still have to have some way to, pull or whatever, bump them.
So you said they are working on those numbers, so we'll be able to see they are working on those numbers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, members of the board, so for the non-union piece, it would be approximately a $20,000 annual cost. Based on the staff we have right now who are at top.
And then how many employees is that? Do you remember off the top of your head?
So there's a,
No, I shouldn't ask.
Good people and about 15 of them.
Sorry.
About 15 of them are in category. If I remember right.
yeah, I think that sounds fairly accurate.
I'm curious, Dave, have you taken like a number like that? 20,000, that's year one, right?
Yep.
In year two, you have to add 2% to it, in year three, 2%, in year four.
Yeah, and you,
Projections like that right up through the age of whatever, 68 or 70, or then it follows through pension, it follows the whole way, right?
But we're not liable for them at pension.
You're not, okay.
That's true. But yes, it raises their top 5, which is good.
yeah, it has the effect of raising the top step.
Yeah.
Right? So whatever the max pay that people are getting, that has a compounding impact. We show that, every year at budget time, right? Staff is the largest expense that the county has.
So put your thinking caps on as we prepare for that 13th. Budget update.
Are we going to talk about the compensation study then at the committee of the whole?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Review of the proposed 2023 budget. You ready, Kelly?
Thank you.
All right.
Board. So we had promised back in September when you guys approved that preliminary budget that we would still be working on it. We'd be coming back and having further discussion. So really that's what we're here for today. And I just first wanted to review how we got here. So back in August, you met with every single department head and went through their budgets and they explained their requests. And then in early September at that first meeting, we had a discussion as the full board on how we wanted to whittle things down and what our target was going to be. And then at that September 20th meeting, we came back with a proposal that we felt met your targets, and you approved that preliminary levy. And then for the last month, departments have been reviewing their budgets. We've seen a few things change here and there. We'll discuss those things later in the presentation. And then today we're here just to do kind of an overview of where we're at now. And then going forward into next month, we'll have the truth and taxation meeting in December. Those proposed tax statements actually are hitting people's mailboxes today. And so I know our phones were starting to ring this morning. And then December 20th, we will need to adopt our final levy and budget. So just where we are in this process. Just a review of what we did. So on September 20th, we adopted a preliminary levy. And so you can see on the left-hand column there where our dollars went and how they were split up of the $21.2 million levy of the different funds that we had allocated them to and how much those had changed from 2022. So just kind of, this is what you approved in September. And so since then, we've been working through this. As part of that levy piece, the levy is only one piece of the budget as a whole. The budget as a whole includes a lot of other revenues besides property taxes. And then it obviously includes all of the expenses. And so this slide literally just shows this is how much your approved levy was, but the next column is how much money those different funds will actually be spending. So what that tells you is there's other revenue sources that help pay for those expenses other than just the tax levy. So I always find it interesting of like human services, you can see that 35% of their total expenses are only paid by the levy. Otherwise, everything else is other funding sources, whether that be state, federal, money, other grants, those types of things. Like the general fund, the big one is county program aid and the police contracts that help pay for those services that are outside of the levy. Dave just mentioned this just a few minutes ago, but our employees' wages and benefits are our biggest expense. And so I just pulled out the three major funds where our employees lie and showed our total expenditures are the darker purple color, and then the total wages are the lighter purple color, wages and benefits. So you can kind of see in the general fund and human services, a huge amount of those expenses are our employees. And in road and bridge, you see kind of the opposite to be true because a huge amount of that expense in road and bridge is our projects. I mean, they still have employees and a significant number of them, but the major portion of that is projects. A lot of, we look at slides like this and go, okay, great. That's where our tax levy goes, but sometimes it's kind of nice to break it down a little bit further of where is it actually going? So when we look at that $12-ish million general fund levy, this chart breaks it down as to where it's actually going. So of that $12-ish million general fund levy, 67.2% of it is going to public safety. And I do have kind of a list of what's included in those breakdowns so that you know where certain things are landing of what's included in what. And again, this is tax levy dollars of what it's paying for in the general fund. And then overall, so your total $21-ish million levy, where are those dollars going? So again, the biggest chunk of the pie is public safety. And then it kind of goes around of where those dollars are going. In our 2023 proposed budget and levy, you've got new dollars that you've put in. And so the question has always been, where are those dollars going? And so this breaks it down by department of where those dollars are going based on that 2023 budget. And so these, it's in order from smallest to largest or largest to smallest. I do like to put that number of employees over on the right-hand side, because as we've said many times, our employees are a large portion of our total. Port security, you can see that down there. Part of that preliminary budget, we had cut out that full-time position of port security. So that's where you're seeing that big decrease there. But otherwise, you can see in comparison to the new levy dollars and how much of that new levy dollars is this going to salaries and benefits. So for example, in Public Works, the third from the bottom there, he's getting no new levy dollars, but yet his wages and salaries are going up almost $20,000. So that tells you he was able to move things around so that he didn't need more levy dollars to pay for it. Others, like the assessor's office, their salaries and benefits are going up at a higher rate than the new levy dollars you're putting in. And that is because there's contract revenue that goes with to help offset some of those salaries and benefits. So there's stories that go along with each of those line items, really. In the sheriff's office, there is one new deputy included in that line item as well. And veteran services, there is a switch from a half-time VSO to a full-time VSO partway through the year as well. However, there is a movement of the office support out of there. So that's pretty revenue neutral, or it's pretty neutral, that change. The ones with the stars there are other employees in that department, or there are employees in that department, but they're included in other places. So solid waste, we've got full-time employees that are partially paid out of solid waste, but they're included in the zoning number. And same with emergency management. Those employees that are paid out of emergency management are included in the sheriff's office number. Yeah, man.
For the jail,
Yeah.
when you have the 46 employees, is that a full contingent or is that where you're at?
Statement of budgeted.
So we budget full.
Right. Well, we budgeted at 95% of
Yeah.
being fully staffed.
And we're down 10, 12, right?
Yeah. Some notes of things that increased in 2023. So this is kind of my slide of what would be the easy things to cut, or what would be the easy changes to highlight. These are maybe new things that were not in the 2022 budget. So if we needed to cut some things, maybe these would be the places to start. Not that I'm suggesting it at all, because there's reasons these things are all in there. So we've discussed the health insurance increase at length. We're self-insured. We could choose not to raise our health insurance rates. However, then we're just going to end up underfunded and the taxpayers are going to be on the hook either way. So that equals $455,000 between 2022 and 2023. All of the contracts, the non-union, have a 2% COLA for 2023. So when you do that calculation, that equals about $370,000 just for the COLA. That doesn't say anything about the steps, because the steps would be on top of that. The East Central Regional Juvenile Center, so that was always paid out of Human Services, which I always felt a little bit strange because that's a probation function. And so that is moving over out of Health and Human Services to the probation budget. So that's not new money that we're spending. It's just being spent in a different place. There is an additional deputy, which the total cost is about $88,000. There's an additional $5,000 for the Historical Society. And Dave asked me, there's a big gap between $88,000 and $5,000. What's missing? Which there's nothing new in between there. So there's not a new item that I could find that was in between there. So it is a big drop down. And then there's additional almost $4,200 for soil and water that was requested. Since you last saw this information, departments have been doing work on the preliminary levy and the preliminary budget. Becky has done a lot of work. She found $30,395 savings. So that was exciting. Good job, Becky. So we've got that savings. As we were going through those department budgets, we did find out that Jeff had wanted $5,000 of levy dollars for each of those programs, the drones, the K9 and the gun range. That was not included originally. So I have added that. Our open enrollment is underway, so we haven't actually changed any numbers because of open enrollment, but that can always be a make or break. If we have 3 people switch from single insurance to family insurance, that's a $30,000 difference, and Becky's savings is gone. And so that's always a big question mark. And so that will be ending this week, I believe. And so then HR will be working through that paperwork and we'll be able to get some answers of, is this going to have an impact? Mark's become aware of a potential decrease in highway state aid that this new budget that we're working through is going to reflect. Overall, that doesn't mean that he needs levy dollars or anything. What that means is some projects that he had planned to do in 2023 may have to get pushed out to 2024. So you'll see that Mark's total expenses have gone down in the iteration we're currently in. Gun permits is something that we have always budgeted. We want to budget that at a revenue zero or at a neutral place, because those are not dollars that we can spend to pay for our regular operations and things. Those dollars have to be spent on issuing gun permits. And so when we make the budget, we always want it to just balance out to zero. And we've been doing that previously by coming up with what we thought our revenue was going to be, and then matching our expenses. However, in thinking about it, we know our expenses, because our expenses are employees. So in my mind, it made more sense to actually budget what those expenses are, because you are who authorized us to spend that money. So you'll see that change of the expenses in the gun permits has bumped pretty far up, $55,000 up, because that is employee salaries who process those permits. But we have just increased the revenue to balance that out. And so gun permits is always something at the end of the year we do a budget adjustment on, or a recognition of spending of reserves. And so in the end, it always ends up to be a neutral thing. And then just one last little change was we moved $1,000 from the admin budget to the non-departmental in the general fund. And that was for the
GPS 4593 membership.
Yes. That's really a county membership and not an administrator's office membership. So you can run down this slide. So as of today, where the levies, we're proposing the levies to be, the first column there is where the levies were in September. The next column is where we're proposing them to be today. So you can see that $30,000 of savings Becky had. We simply at this point moved it into the general fund because again, there are so many changes and balls in the air at this point with open enrollment that $30,000 can be gone in a moment. But other ways, the other funds have stayed exactly the same. The other funds are very straightforward funds, are bond funds. We know what our bond payments are going to be, and we know how much we have to levy, and we don't get to make a decision on that. So the budget as of November 15th, so you can see how overall things are sitting. So you've got your revenue lines of how much money do we have coming in to pay for these expenses. And so that revenue line includes both property taxes and other revenue sources, whether that be county program aid fees that we charge, grants, those types of things is all included in that revenue line. Compared to how much expenses we're expecting throughout the year for 2023. And then it just shows the net. So each of our funds is sitting either at zero or in the positive, except for human services. And the reason for that is Becky has some McB funds in a restricted fund. So that's a home visiting restricted fund, home visiting program restricted fund that are planned use of expenditures. And so that's why that's sitting in the negative. It's just planning on using fund balance. Questions on this?
I have one for Becky. How are we doing on auto home placements? Up, down?
I think for this year, it's going to be increased from what it was last year. What we're seeing is our expenses and mental health placements have evened out this year. Our expenses in child protection are right on where they should be for this time of the year. And probation out of home placement expenses are increased compared to what they've been in previous years.
Okay.
Between all of those three areas, we should be okay.
It's always been our budget busters.
Becky, silly question, but do you think that part of that with the probation issues, because we had so many years where the kids, they didn't go to school, so they were at home and things just were not taken care of the way that they normally are because you don't have the people that see the issues that are going on?
With the kiddos who are in placement and probation, I would say that was probably not the biggest factor.
Okay.
And usually historically, kids who have been placed out of home in probation, almost all of them are budget busters if they're in placement for 30 days or longer, just because of the issues that are leading to placement. You may have a sex offender, you may have significant violations of the law.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so that's the end of my prepared presentation. Questions, thoughts?
I appreciate the update. And thanks, David and Kelly, pass this on to all the staff for the continued work. Get us to the end, to the finish line. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Kelly.
You like questions. I'm sorry, I don't have any for you.
We'll let you stay right there and give us an election update.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So in the Friday update, you had gotten kind of my spreadsheet of the election turnout. I just wanted to dig into those numbers a little bit deeper. So in Pine County, our overall turnout was 69.1%, which was actually down compared to 2018. In 2018, we were about 4% higher. It's interesting because we had about 900 more voters this year, just because our overall registered voter counts have gone up. But yet our turnout was down. Yeah.
I noticed that, which is counterintuitive to me when the Census Bureau says our county count is down.
Right.
So I don't know how that works.
I think a lot of people just haven't voted for so many years and there's.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Yeah, but the percentage of voters is down,
Yeah,
but we got more voters. And the census says our number of people living in Pine County is down. So,
Am I interjecting, Steve?
yeah,
Our increase, and we had plenty. All of it were kids moving back home.
but didn't that show up in the census?
I think, well, in like those kids moving back home in April of 2020, when that census came,
That's true.
they were maybe still at college or they were trying to make it on their own. And then COVID came and kind of the world changed and they moved back home.
Okay.
And I since COVID and the census date of April of 2020, we have had just an influx of people moving from the Twin Cities metro area to their what used to be their second homes or their cabins. Whether that's because they realize they can work from home or they've retired, those baby boomers getting to that age where they're able to retire now. So I feel confident in that. What's that?
I'm sorry, I was just mouthing safety. This is what I heard from the other group of older people. They feel safer up here. So there is a separate group. And I believe the census does not reflect.
Right.
lot of changes since 2020.
There's been a lot of changes since 2020. So overall, in that voter number, there were 12,464 voters that voted countywide. Of those voters, 2,458 of them voted absentee or by mail. So that's more than, or that's less than, well, that's about half of what voted in 2020 by absentee or mail. It's interesting to me because there were about 1,500 absentees and about 950 that were in those actual mail ballot jurisdictions. Typically, in those mail ballot jurisdictions, we've seen higher turnouts than the polling place, but I was a little surprised this time that it was actually lower.
So that,
Yeah, and I don't have any. All of those statistics I like to look at and try to figure out, is there a trend, is there a reason? And I've come up with nothing.
Did you go back to the last midterm? Because normally midterms.
Right, for mail ballot, we're still down.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
the people that we saw at the courthouse voting, where do they show up statistically?
So typically those people are in the absentee bucket.
Okay,
People who are in a true mail ballot jurisdiction, the courthouse is their polling place, so they can come there. But until election day, the number of those people that actually come there is very few. But on election day, if you were in the courthouse and you saw the line at our counter, those were the mail ballot folks.
but all those early voter people,
Right,
they're actually
they're typically
considered
absentee.
absentee, okay.
With those absentee ballots, this year we did them in the mail ballots. We did it very different than we did in 2020. We had an absentee ballot board that was made up of election judges, citizens whom you hired to process those ballots, to accept and reject them. So that was a very different process than we've had in the past. I think it turned out very well to have 4 very different people sitting around that table talking about certain ballots that would come up and questions they had, and they'd have to come to a consensus of, did they want to accept the ballot? Did they want to reject the ballot? What did they want to do? So I think it was a really good process. I want to just mention the name of those 4 ballot board members and my appreciation for them. And we'll get into a little bit of that too, but it was Mary Jo Metler from Pine City, Jean Carroll from Finlayson, Katie Jacobs from Hinckley, and Jean Holman Tracy from Pine City. So that was our group for the general election. At the primary election, we had 2 more folks, Marilyn Jewell and then Doug Fleschner from Bruno. But those 2, Doug was actually on the ballot, so he couldn't serve at the general. And then Marilyn unfortunately passed away. So so we had those 4 that did that work of that 2,458 ballots, and they handled every single one of those ballots twice. Once to accept or reject it when it came in, and then once to actually process it through the tabulator. With that processing through the tabulator, it was something that I wanted to mention, because I know several of you, I got text messages or calls from on election night of going, why is Pine County say 0? It's 1 a.m. What's going on? Is everything okay? Do you need anything? And that is the reason, is because our election results do not show on the Secretary of State's website until our absentees and our mail ballots are reported. And our ballot board is who processes and puts those through the tabulator, and we started at noon on Monday because that was my decision of how much time I thought it was going to take us. And it took us till just after 1 a.m. on election morning, I guess you would say. So it was quite the feat, but that was the reason why you saw nothing showing from Pine County, because if you upload the polling place results and people look at those, and then all of a sudden those absentees come in, that would be very confusing. So they can't be reported until both numbers are ready.
And if you have one voter that was absentee, then I'm going to know how they voted and that it's voter.
Yes. Yeah. So those folks that served on the ballot board, they all still had such a good attitude by 1:15 a.m. and I really appreciate them.
Their attitude was better than ours, right?
Right. In 2024, obviously, lesson learned, we can start processing those ballots 7 days before the election. And I didn't want to, because then you end up processing Pokegama Township, for example, on the Wednesday before the election, but then 100 more ballots come in. And so then on Monday, you're processing 100 ballots from Pokegama Township again. And so you're just having to do multiple batches of each township. So I wanted to wait, but it turns out I shouldn't have waited as long. But our election results got out there just not as soon as some had hoped. You know, the Secretary of State's office called a couple times and said, what's going on? Too. But in the end, you know, the process was very deliberate and clear on how we did things. And I feel very confident in how it went. I wish that we would have been done at 8:30 instead of 1:15. And then after they were able to get all the ballots to the tabulator, then they have to go back through and tally those write-ins. So they didn't get out of there till after 2. So it was a long night. Otherwise, I wanted to address Gussie's concern. And so Gussie's concern really aims at directly what's going to happen tomorrow. So tomorrow is the canvassing board. And so Terry and JJ, along with the mayor of Pine City and our court administrator and myself, are the ballot board. And what we do at that is we literally take the results from the polling place, add in our absentee results, and make sure that was what was reported to the state. Usually this is a really uneventful meeting because it's mostly all electronically done and it's very straightforward. We have 5 townships in Pine County that still hand count. They do not use tabulators. So when people hand count, rather than them bringing in a memory stick and me plugging it into the computer and the results going, we're literally hand entering numbers. And so typically the day or two after the election, I will go back and make sure, did we hand enter them right? Gussie beat me to that this year. So in our lone township for the hospital board, it had a 0 in there and it should have had a 19. And so that's been corrected. I think it's important to know that there's a disclaimer on that Secretary of State's website that it is unofficial. It still says unofficial until all the canvassing boards are met. And I guarantee, I mean, the hospital district has a canvassing board, and so they would have caught it. It absolutely would have been caught. And so I feel confident in our results today that are showing.
So the hospital board, they get a copy of that summary statement right away after the election too, so that they can do their numbers and get everything together also.
Correct.
So it's kind of a double check, which is just a really nice asset.
Yes, so yes, there was a township that was entered wrong.
Yep.
But when you're hand entering, it can happen at 2:30 in the morning. And I mean, I've gone back through and proved everything now. There's been time to do that. And so again, I feel confident tomorrow we're going to canvass the returns and we're going to be there several hours going through every single county level and up race of adding together the polling place plus the absentees and making sure that is really what was reported to the state. And then the hospital district does the same thing for theirs. The cities do the same thing for theirs, and the school district does the same thing for theirs. And then also the last piece of that kind of post-election process to ensure votes were tabulated correctly is the post-election review, which will happen this coming Monday, the 21st. So at the canvassing board tomorrow, you guys will be pulling out of a hat 2 township names, township or city names. And so on Monday, literally, we have to hand count those ballots to ensure that the tabulator did them correctly for those 2 townships or cities that are randomly pulled for the governor and the US rep races. So questions?
So when you hand count, I've read several things that say when you hand count and you put them in piles of 25, that is the most inaccurate compared to a tabulator. So what's the margin of error if you're hand counting them?
I don't know.
Oh.
As an example, our ballot board, I don't remember which township. They count the envelopes of the ballots before they open up. They've got 69. They look at my report. They're supposed to have 69. They open all the envelopes. They count the ballots they have again, and they have 68. And I said, get those envelopes out of the garbage. You missed one. We went through every single envelope, nothing in there. And I said, did someone open an envelope that was empty? No. So we literally counted those ballots 5 times. Every time, all of us came up with 68. And so we write on our incident log that we don't know what happened. Like there had to have been an empty envelope. This does not make sense. And then the following day, there were 69.
Oh, my gosh.
And it comes down to, I mean, one of those ballots, the top was folded down so that when you're going through counting, it was just folded down. So when you're going through the top of the stack counting, we were missing one. So that was a lot of time spent.
So that's the counting portion. I'm going to throw myself under the bus on this one, but you've got the entry position too. And so there was one year that we had a lot of the hand counts and I entered one and I missed a 0 on a number. And so that person was, the numbers were way off and it gets caught in the canvassing board, which is where you've got up 4 checks. That made national news. So
Remember that.
I heard it from a friend of mine in New York that I was on TV, but yeah. It's so easy to make it hurt.
Right, and one piece I do want to mention too, we've got those 5 hand counts. And then we do have 3 townships that actually come to the courthouse and use the tabulator. So we had been saving up money thinking we were going to have to purchase all these tabulators and things. So in 2023, I would like to explore because I've got some of those townships that hand count that never had a tabulator just because of the cost. And it took them till after 1 a.m. to count and we're beyond frustrated because they said we had to count every single one of these ballots 42 times because there's 42 races. And I said, yeah. And so I probably will be coming back to you sometime in 2023 so we can prepare for that 2024 presidential election to see, can we purchase tabulators for these townships that want them? If they don't want them, I'm not going to force them on them because I know there's one that does not want them. But when you use a tabulator, in my mind, it's 100% accurate and then we don't have this hand entry error.
How did the new machines work, generally speaking?
So it was interesting. The new machines are very sensitive. And so we found a lot of just somebody rested their pen and then the ballot would get kicked out and we'd stare at it, or the townships would, the polling places would stare at it and go, we don't know why it won't take this. It keeps saying it's an overvote. Which in one respect, great that they're so sensitive. In another respect, it was really frustrating.
So you put a sign up, don't touch the machine, just put the paper.
Filling out their ballots, which one do I want to do? And they'd be resting their pen and then. So it would come back as, well, you voted for 2 in that race.
If our machine hadn't fallen apart, we wouldn't have found a ballot the next day.
They're plastic, so they're staticky. So the ballots stick to them where the other machines were.
Patched up inside where nobody could see it, 2 people on the floor.
So I think that, it went. I think that there was some lessons learned and, I think it'll be interesting moving forward to 2024.
Those learning processes are always new when you have a change, so it's just, yeah.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So if they kick them out, do you know right away?
Correct. So at the polling place, if the voter puts their ballot in, it immediately looks at it and says, oh, there's an issue.
Yeah,
So then you got a chance to.
you don't even get away from the machine.
Okay.
So I went to vote.
Back out, examine it.
Well, it comes up and says, this is the issue. What would you like to do? Do you want to cast the ballot as it is, which would mean something's not going to count on that ballot? Like if you voted for 2 in the governor race, it will tell you you've overvoted in the governor race. Do you want to cast it as it is and the governor race won't count, or do you want to return it?
And I went to vote, the lady in front of me put hers in and she was walking away and I said, wait, no, come back. Because I can't insert my ballot until they've taken care of theirs. So, it was kind of fun being actually in a polling place and then having something.
Is so polling places that have a tabulator are supposed to have an extra judge that's assigned to that tabulator to make sure people don't run away before it's on.
Can I just say one thing about Kelly? I mean, I'm gonna through a few elections, and she has been just so good with information. If you need to know anything, she answers it, she gets back to you. I can't say enough good about what she's done with the elections, and it's not an easy job. It's not an easy job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kelly. I think everybody that's ever worked at an election or paid any kind of attention when they go to vote honestly say there is no way in my township that anybody could cheat. I just don't. Yeah, I mean, so I don't know where people think people are cheating, but it's not in Pine City Township.
I think Minnesota does a really good job with all their checks and balances. You know, there's so many different avenues that go with it that I think that we do a lot to cover that basis. For some other states, you know, if you've got paperless or you've got whatever, you know.
I think, and I bet if you lived in one of those other states, you'd probably be saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never lived in another state. I don't know. Anyway, thank you. We'll move on to some commissioner updates, soil and water.
Yeah.
You want to go?
They have new forester, Lauren Nelson. She was introduced. There's still an ag technician vacancy. Everything else was pretty much business as usual. I got a copy of the draft minutes if anybody wanted to dig into it any further. There was only one public comment, and that was me. There was some confusion on a culvert being plugged up in northern Pine County, Island Lake. And they said that the township is going to take care of it. It's not in the jurisdiction of the soil and water or DNR or anything. So that's it.
Council on Aging, we had a joint meeting with our advisory committee last week, and I think the good news was there were some people from the state Council on Aging that were there to listen and understand the predicament that area agencies are in, because we've got more demand than we've had ever, and we have less money coming down the chute to put on programs. And where we, in some cases where we have money, we can't find people to do the work. Like chore givers is a big one. It's just very difficult. Senior dining sites and home delivered meals. The thing they're really trying to protect is the home delivered meals, because that's where the people who are in nutritional deficits, that's where they usually fit, is in that home delivered meal category. God bless those people from Catholic Charities in St. Cloud that invented or came up with this wonderful idea of these frozen meals. And I think any of us that have had moms and dads that have gotten elderly have done exactly what they're doing. We cook meals, we put them in Tupperware containers, say, okay, mom, you take this out, you put it in the microwave for 2 minutes or whatever, and you got a good roast beef or whatever. And basically that's what they're doing for those people in those frozen meals. And they're very good. I've never eaten one. I've just told they're very good. So anyway. Broadband boot camp. Did you go to that, Terry?
I did. So a lot of it is just kind of going over the things that we already know, what the difference between DSL and dial-up and fiber is. That was a lot of the first one, was just the initial. One of the things that they brought up that we failed on, and I was kind of wondering about it when we did it, but when we gave Midco those small projects, we kind of screwed ourselves up because we might not be able to get the provider to go in and do bigger projects if Midco won't do it because we gave them the congested areas and now they're going to have to do rural. So that's one of the things that they said is, you need to not do little projects. You need to keep those little projects out there for the big projects. Go ahead.
I think, Terry, when we did that, we talked about that.
Yeah,
And
we did.
well, you're caught in a no-win situation because
You help
you
these
can
people or-
give
Yeah.
50 or 100 homes access,
Right.
or you can wait and for how long to give 200 or 150 homes in the whole township access, I get what they're saying,
Right.
but with a limited amount of funds,
I know. And
I don't know.
you want to help the people as fast as you can to get the
Right.
service. So it makes it hard. One thing that they're really pushing is that we need to be involved with the Minnesota Broadband
yeah,
organization, because there's going to be a lot of money coming through them. And if they actually be a pain in their butt because you want your county to come forefront on that when it's time for them to start doing that, to realize that we do have the need, but we also have the desire to fix it. And mapping, they said to sign up for the ACT. But yeah, the big one is going to be the mapping. With the RDOF money, we know that LTD was denied awards and then Starlink was denied awards, and Starlink is appealing that. But they didn't say anything about LTD. And so that's actually going back, and then the FCC will start working on how they can give that money out. So hopefully we'll be able to get that worked out so that we can get that money. There's another meeting this Thursday, and that one's going to be the more intense, more directional.
thanks.
Yep.
Solid Waste Commission, went through our proposed budget for 23. All that stuff costs a lot of money. That you use in a landfill. Big thing that's looming is to get a new permit for expansion. And the air permit all of that stuff requires reams of paper and engineering studies to people that understand that to get it filled out right. So it's a long, lengthy process.
Any change to the tipping fees for the haulers?
Not at this time.
Oh, good.
Let's see, regional library.
Really, they're just kind of going through the policies on, how to do it if certain things happen, just to have the policy set up so that they can, kind of what Kelly was talking about, just to have it set up so that you know what you're going to answer, how you can work around things. And so that was a big part of it. Some of it got tabled for further input, and yeah, that was the majority of the meeting.
Chemical Health Coalition.
One of the things that they're talking about there is doing baskets for sources like first responders or deputies to help with people who are having opioid issues. So it might be, pamphlets on where you can go to get your help, information on different ways that opioids can cause issues. There were a few things that were going to get put in that basket and I kind of lost track, but it's something that they'll be able to hand out when they go upon those calls. So it'll be a good asset. I think that's what I have in my notes is the baskets. One of the things and then detecting vapes. There's a lot of kids vaping in school, and Reese brought up that there's something on his desk now where one of our sellers is selling flavored vapes, which I guess I don't realize much about them, but you can get like watermelon flavored now and strawberry and all this other stuff, are those illegal to sell those? Is that kind of
I think there wasn't a license for them, so they were confiscated by the state as contraband.
Okay. Okay, so, but that's what's getting in the hands of our kids. And so Sandstone is, or East Central is looking into it, and Pine City is looking into it about getting vape wands so that they can wand the kids and see who's got the vapes and get them out of the schools. Because it's that bad, which, you know, is really sad to think about it, but it's gotten that bad. We've got 3 new members. Willow River signed up to be a member on the Chemical Coalition, and Pine City Schools did. And then we got a sweet lady who works with, my brain just died, Celebrate Recovery. So she actually is a statewide organizer for the kids part of Celebrate Recovery. And so she deals with the kids that deal with the chemical abuse in their homes, so that she's going to be a good asset. I sat in on one of the opioid classes that I had signed up for, and one of the things that they talked about, and Jeff, you're going to shake your head at me on this one. I'm really sorry, but they were talking about with opioid use, we just need to get them off the streets. You know, we need to put them in a safe place when they're high and they're arrested. We need to get them someplace where they're not going to be able to get out in 24 hours or whatever the time limit is. And I have no clue because I've never been busted for it. But one of the things that they talked about in one of the other counties in Ohio is doing, and they built a new jail for this. So I don't believe that we have access to do this, but they have a pod in their jail that's just for these folks that they can go in there and they have to clean it themselves. I mean, it's totally self-sufficient, but they're there because they want to be where they're in a safe place where they can get off of the opioids and they can have people come in. And I don't know if we have pods available for something like that, but it would take the staff time off and that type of stuff. But maybe down the road, I know opioid use is getting to be something that is, along with the mental illness, we're having issues. And so just to think about different, but they said the biggest thing is that we have to get them off of the roads. We've got to get them off the streets. They also talked about how easy it is to make the drugs now versus even a couple of years ago. And so we're seeing an override on that. So, yeah.
I think a note for Deb is that the meeting changed to Thursdays.
Yeah.
The second Thursday?
Second Thursday, yeah.
Second Thursday. Did you get that, Deb?
Got it. Thank you.
Last question.
Yeah,
Is opioids a bigger problem than meth yet, or similar, or?
I still say, see way more than
Yeah.
that. Which I think market is still. Opioids are growing, and again, I think we see the deaths associated with them more, so it garners a little more attention. But in fact, look at the addiction and the treatment and all of those.
So I think on that avenue, what they were talking about with that pod is that it would be drug use. So it wouldn't necessarily just be opioids. And thank you, Josh, for bringing that up. So it would be, you know, opening it up to people that have those issues that need help.
Terry, did they talk about with the upcoming, we're pretty sure they're going to be passing the marijuana bill, you know, where it's legal to have marijuana. Have they talked about legal limits? I mean, you've got people out there driving or performing functions, blood tests. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I personally haven't.
yeah, that's, you can ask that, but we're having a board meeting here, so. Okay. Any other?
I have another other.
Okay,
I am really excited about this other. We received word yesterday that we did get the grant for the family resource centers. And so we'll get to start working on that. And Becky, do you want to add anything more than, I know more is going to be coming down, but do you want to add any more to that?
No, I'm just really excited.
Yeah.
More to come.
cool. Awesome. And that grant came from,
This is gonna come up here, so.
Yeah.
From the Sauer Family Foundation.
Okay.
Philanthropic grant. It's good news, good news.
yeah. I know you worked hard on that. Thanks.
I got
Yep.
that too. I was brought to attention by a town board about, I don't know if you're familiar with, by the transfer station, there's a cemetery.
Mhm.
And it's like a historical cemetery, or I don't think it's like you can get buried there anymore.
There's one person in there.
I think there's a couple. But he was wondering if the county could explore somebody, right now the township takes care of it. And like they got the contract to get it cleaned up and stuff like that, maintain the mowing and stuff. And he's wondering if the county would explore, like if there's a historical society or something that would maybe get it on the map, so as you're driving down the road, you could stop and look at the thing and get a sign up and maybe take care of the maintenance. I just didn't know where it would go or what it would do.
So there was a big thing on Facebook about this by Memorial Day.
Okay.
Because nobody had been taking care of it. And so the people, I mean, they volunteered, a bunch of people that were on Facebook got together and they went out and they did the weeds and they mowed and took care of it at that point. So I don't know how much the township is doing when the citizens stepped up to do it.
It sounds like they pay to have it mowed twice a month or something.
Interesting, okay.
The little one up in Windermere also.
Is there?
And I'm not sure, now that you mentioned it, I haven't even really thought about it.
And I didn't know if it's something that would go to land committee or facility committee or, I mean,
We had still.
okay,
Yeah, but just a little.
yeah. So I decided I'd bring it to the board's attention and we can, if someone thinks of something, we can.
If we had an STS crew, but we don't have one anymore.
Yeah.
That would have been a good.
Any other? Look at your meeting coming up. Got plenty of them. So anybody gonna get to Arrowhead tomorrow?
I'm gonna try.
Okay, thanks. If not, no other business, we'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you,
Well,
everyone.
I got a hockey game on. I think I can go for now.